What is going on, guys? Today I'm back with another video, and a lot of people maybe wonder this question, right? How does lust destroy you as an individual, as a man or a woman who struggles with this issue? And I know that before like in the past, in the good old days, people just used to take these things as common sense, like, well, you know how it destroys you. Like, I don't have to explain everything to you, but and there is a lot of merit to that argument, obviously, because a lot of people operated by principles, so it wasn't really as necessary, at least in their minds, to know the scientific explanation, like the psychological, social effects of lust that it can have on an individual or people who are in relationships, right? So, how does lust destroy you then? Well, as an individual, if you are a man who struggles with lust, and that comes through the consumption of pornography or, even masturbating, um, you know, those things rewire your brain and they teach you to look at not just at others, but at yourself a certain way, right? And that way is sexual, right? So you start to push away all of the other attributes of an individual. So, by the way, you're also including yourself in this. So you're not just perceiving others that way, you're also perceiving yourself the same way. You're realigning the priorities and you're making sex and sexual pleasure become more important than getting to know the individual, right? And talking to them and treating them as a holistic individual, not just as somebody who is sexual and that's it, right? So that's how a normal person thinks. They think that people are complex, they're made up of not just the collection of body parts, but also emotions, desires, interests, right? So, in other words, a healthy person is able to look at individuals in a more complex and dynamic way, and they are getting to know them and peeling the onion, for lack of a better term, layer by layer. Whereas somebody who is really struggling with lust is, it's not that they're completely incapable of doing that, but it's very difficult to do that because they've conditioned their brain to prioritize the sexual experience, the immediate gratification. And once they get that, then they're not interested in the person anymore. And so that is one of the main dangers of struggling with this issue. And I know that so many people deal with this, especially in our culture today, that encourages people to just think of sex as something that's casual, that's divorced from emotions, but in reality, and even the psychological data is clear on this, that you cannot actually divorce sex from emotions and intimacy. So that means the Bible is actually right when it says that, like, you shouldn't fornicate, you should not commit adultery, because when you join with someone in a sexual union, you are literally becoming one with them. And so now imagine doing that with so many different people. You're becoming one with so many different people. What does that do to your psyche? Well, what it does is it confuses you and it makes you look at humans as less than humans. You see them not made in the image of God, but you see them as objects for gratification. So it becomes more normal to you to take advantage of them, to manipulate them, to hurt them in all kinds of ways. And you desensitize yourself to feeling guilt about doing those things because you think, well, I need to fulfill my desire, and so I don't really see anything wrong with what I'm doing, even though what you are doing is clearly wrong, right? Now, how are we supposed to overcome those issues? Well, this is obviously not my specialty. This is not something that I can necessarily speak very, like in a specialized way about, but I have done some reading in this area and I have talked to certain individuals about this issue. Um, like understanding today's society and whatnot, and the struggles that so many of us have in this area. And the best thing that you can do is, first of all, understand that humans are complex, right? That humans are made in the image of God. If you can't start there, then it's going to be very difficult to let those sick and twisted desires go, right? So once you understand the intrinsic value of humans, as it's mentioned in Jeremiah 1:5, where before he formed us in the womb, he knew us, you understand then that it is your moral duty to treat others with respect. And if you're not doing that, then you're actually violating and you're trying to oppose what God has designed, right? We are supposed to respect each other. We don't have to agree with each other, but we are commanded to be respectful of one another. And when you are somebody who is really struggling with lust, and please don't misunderstand me, I'm not trying to use this as a condemnation. I'm just simply describing how it affects your psyche. You become incapable of respecting others as human beings because the only thing that you're seeking is immediate gratification, sexual gratification, right? You're also incapable of being friends with the opposite gender. And here's what I mean by friend, right? Because I do sincerely believe that it's very difficult for men and women to be pure platonic friends, right? Because there's always this underlying attraction that's involved. So it's very difficult. Maybe not necessarily it's completely impossible, but it's certainly very difficult to achieve it. You are not able to just speak to women, and this actually it's the same for women. So when I say men and women, I'm not just talking about this is something that only men suffer from. Women suffer the exact same thing when they are struggling with this issue. You're not able to see the other person for who they really are. You're not even able to have a conversation with them and to enjoy just the human interaction that people are wired to have for survival. You're only able to think about one thing and one thing only. And if you're not getting that thing, then that's going to upset you and make you feel frustrated. Because all the other stuff that you're doing, it's a means to an end, right? So you're not really enjoying the emotional connection for its own sake. You're only doing it because really what you're interested in is one thing and one thing only, right? Which is the immediate gratification sexually. So that's one way that, or these are just several ways that lust can affect us, guys. I know this is something that's kind of like a departure. I have not done any videos like this. I've done one on Instagram. That was a while back though. I think that was last year. But I have been reading about this issue a little bit more. I have some books on, one book at least on Kindle, on my Kindle app that talks about that. So I found it pretty interesting. There are some scientific studies that I've read, and I've always been curious about, because, like, as a social scientist, I like to understand human behaviors and why people do the things that they do. So, and how it affects them in their relationships, in their psychology, in their social aspect, things like that. So, maybe I'll do more of these kinds of videos that are kind of like self-help and not so theoretical and abstract and philosophical. Hopefully this helped you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.